All right, what's up, everybody? It's good to see all of you all, and we are back for another month of the Christian Leaders Book Club, and I am excited to be back on with my brother John C. Richards, Pastor John C. Richards Jr., Esquire.
A lot of labels, man. Just Pastor John. That'll work. What's up, Pastor Christopher? How you doing, man?
Man, with all them labels that you got, I just want to say I'm blessed and highly favored.
Oh, you got just as many. Don't even try that. You got just as many, brother.
Man, God is good. God is good, and God has blessed us in a real way. So we're thankful, man, for this platform, and thankful for the discussions that we've had. Man, it's been really really good this year. I was thinking early this morning, just kind of in my own time this morning about the kinds of books that we've been able to walk through and the
Mm,
discussions we've had, and man, it's been really good. Like
yeah.
I mean, I know we prayed and planned coming into this year about which books we would pick. And I feel like we were very strategic and intentional about, which books we picked and that kind of thing. And the vast majority, well, all of the books that we picked, either both of us had read or at least one of us had read. And
Right.
so looking back on it, I'm just like, man, there's been some amazing discussions that have taken place during this time. And today's book is really going to be it's going to be an amazing one.
Yep. Man, this is something I think is both of our passions. One of the things that both of us have really leaned into, and being in different seasons of life of parenting also allows us to kind of shape our lens on how we view the season that we're in. So I think it's going to be a good conversation, man.
Absolutely,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah,
So
yeah,
I
yeah.
want to let me do this. Let me just take a quick moment and just share with everybody really fast where we've been on this journey, so that people have some context of what this discussion has been. So on your screen right there is a list of books that we've already covered, but also you'll be able to see the list of books of where we're headed. So we started out the year in January talking about At Your Best. That was really, really a powerful book, a personal development book. In February, we walked through Reparations, which of course February is Black History Month. So that book really, really challenged us in a different way because it's not and was not, that discussion was not like your traditional approach or conversation on reparations. I mean, it was really the
Mm,
depth and the theological framework and social implications, historical implications also was pretty big.
yep.
Um, March, we talked about speaking across generations, which, although this book was catered to people that are communicators primarily, I really feel like if you're in leadership, the framework and the depth of talking through the generational lens was just really powerful.
Mm,
Um, so April was Character Still Counts, and very very practical book similar to like a John Maxwell, very meaty but very very easy handles to grab a hold of the content in that book.
yep.
Um, then so January, February, March, April, May we dealt with, and remember where I was in May, we dealt with Becoming Human, and we acknowledged that that book is probably an academic book. It was pretty weighty to read and to navigate. Last month we talked through the 7 pillars of health, and that was really fun and really good. And then last month, July, we walked through the book called Toxic Faith. And I will say that we also discovered in real time on last Wednesday that there are 2 additions to the book. And so if you Google it or look it up online, you may have an image that looks different. So today is August. We deal with parenting, getting it right by Andy and Sandra Stanley. It's going to really be fun. September is If Jesus Gave a TED Talk. It's one of my so just a very straightforward book as well. Very easy book to read. I'm a fan of Charles Stone. I've had him on my podcast a number of times, so really excited about going through that book. And I may see if we can get him on the book, get him on that live. That may be
That'd
fun.
be good, man. That'd be pretty cool.
He lives in
Yeah.
Canada, but we'll see if we can maybe get him on. We've got Compassion and Conviction. The AND campaign is the foundation of that book. So looking forward to that. And that's going to be so timely in October, coming up on
Mm.
with the election. Then in November, we're going to need to get our mind right after the election. So we deal with contracts and the conversations that we have with ourselves. And then we'll close the year out in December talking about sitting at the feet of Rabbi Jesus. Pastor John, anything you want to say about any of those books? Anything you want to
No, I think we were very intentional with the way we picked them. I like the way they're laying out, not just in terms of our schedule, but just life in general, because these are things that we're kind of processing through life together. We picked this month because folks are going back to school, man.
Yep.
And parenting enters new seasons for people. I have a
Yep.
high schooler now. You just dropped off. You just had a college graduate, and you got somebody who was in college, right?
So yeah, we'll talk about. The both of us gonna share our parenting season of where we are in just a minute.
Yeah, I only say that just to say that this month is a good month to do that reflection, right?
Perfect. Perfect.
So it's a good time for us to be able to do that.
Yeah, man. So all right. So you have, what are the ages of you? Because you guys have two.
Yeah. So 14 and 9.
14 and 9.
Yep.
14 and 9.
What about you?
We've got 4. And so
Mhm.
I feel like I'm in every season of parenting that exists, right? So our oldest is now a college graduate and in the workforce. Glory to God. Amen.
Amen. Amen. That's
And
right.
so, on so many levels, I'm thankful for that arrival of where she is. But she's a world changer, a game changer, and so we're very, very proud of her. But she's doing her thing. Graduated from college and is now in the workforce at the beginning of stages of her career, which is only up from here. We've got 2 high schoolers, 17 and 16, so a senior and a junior in high school, and then we have a 6-year-old that is in 1st grade and navigating the elementary journey.
Wow. So college graduate, elementary school student.
Brother, listen.
God bless you.
In one day, I literally dealt with loading a U-Haul for the oldest and doing sight words for the youngest.
Yeah, that's definitely 2 seasons of life on the opposite end of the spectrum. It's like going from one elevation to the next on the plane. Like, it can be jarring, but looks like you all navigate that well. So yeah, man, it'd be good to have a conversation about that, because that's one of the things that this book talks about, right?
It does. The difference.
And generally what we do is we kind of go through the main point of the book, which I think for anything Andy Stanley, you're gonna get one bottom line from him.
Yep.
And it's gonna be early, right? And then we generally walk through the chapters of the book, so I think it'd be a good idea for us to be able to do that. But his bottom line is very clear in this book, and I'm not sure if we got the same one, but Andy is pretty clear about his. He has one parenting goal, at least that's what him and his wife say they do. They want kids who enjoy being with us and with each other, even when they no longer have to be.
When they have the choice to choose otherwise.
That's it. When you have the choice to choose to not to be with your family, you still choose to be with them, even in adult years.
Yeah.
And I think that thesis is something that just kind of played out throughout the book, but it really is a goal for every parent, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Right. He has this, Andy, I listened to Pastor Andy even talk about his speaking journey and some of the tools around how he develops his communicating style and all those things. So I know based on that he works really hard at creating language and creating phrases that just are sticky statements, right? That you can, meaty and sticky, and you can grab a hold of them and go from there. And one of the things that he says in the book that I think is just gold, and it frames what you just said, right? And that is simple phrase, 2 words, parent backwards. And you think about that, you're like, that makes sense.
Right.
That's really powerful. That makes sense. And so, it's really just it's a blessing to be able to just think about it in that way. And one of the other phrases that he says is that the years are the days are long, but the years are short.
The years are short. Yeah. And I think that's what his wife mentioned, that her mother told her that she got adopted that, right? And it's so true, man. Like bro, you think about how the years fly by,
Yeah.
but boy, sometimes them days.
Like when you're in the middle of it, it feels like,
Yeah,
Jesus, man, this is a lot. It
yeah,
can
yeah,
feel
yeah.
really weighty. But then you look back, like I said, I got a daughter that's now already a college graduate, and I literally can
Mm,
remember when we brought her home from the hospital. I mean, I vividly,
mm,
clearly, even from an emotional place, can connect
mm,
with the day that we clocked out of the hospital,
mm.
getting the car seat in, worried if I had it strapped in right. Uh,
Wow,
it's
wow.
cold outside, it's ice on the ground.
I
Um,
remember that.
yeah, and first of all, your wife has to, be wheeled out in a wheelchair. And when our oldest was born, this was
Mm,
still during the time period. They didn't just release you from the hospital the next day. I mean, you stayed, 3 or 4 days.
yeah,
Um,
yep, yep.
getting her home, my wife home, make sure she's settled. But then once she gets in the car, then getting the baby, and I'm hearing the click from the car seat to the base, but I'm like,
You
but
want to
wait,
make sure.
yeah, but what happens if did it click right? What happens if I
Right.
turn and then the baby falls out? And then may
So many
vividly
thoughts.
remember changing the diaper for the first time. Like, man, I'm gonna break her hip or I'm gonna break her
Mm,
thighs trying to change her diaper because
mm,
so all of those
mm,
emotions.
mm, mm. Yeah, all that comes into play, man, when you
Yeah,
think about it. And so knowing that in the blink of an eye, those years can go by.
yeah,
Like, bro, over 4 months, my son grows 5 inches. I'm like, bro, how are you even 6'1" right now?
yeah,
Like, what is this?
yeah,
So, things like that, man, really help give you perspective. But I love that idea and that concept of parenting backwards. And also this idea that we're about to talk about here in the first chapter, where he talks about that law of harvest,
yeah,
um, and being able to not cram your children into adulthood, which I thought was a great concept, man. Being able to do that throughout the several seasons of your life and not necessarily wait until we're towards the end to say, okay, how can I prepare you to be an adult?
yeah.
Which is important, very important for all parents, but sometimes parents wait too late to try to do that. And you can kind of see that as it plays out over the latter years of their kids' life while they're at home.
Yeah, one of the ways that they talk about that is preparing your children for future success.
Hmm.
Preparing your children for future success, which I thought is just gold
Mm,
and very powerful.
mm.
So 11 chapters, very easy
Yep.
read.
Yep.
Uh, very easy read. I mean, you can almost, if you had, uh, you know, 4 hours of uninterrupted
Mm,
time, you could probably read through this whole book in one sitting. Um,
hmm. Yep.
very easy. So we got our North Star. We got the 4 stages of parenting. 2 chapters there. You got Don't Worship the Devil. You got Designer Consequences. Schedule Survival, which was a big chapter. You've got Words. That was another big. All the chapters are big. I won't get into having.
Hmm.
When Seconds Count, Marriage Matters, Spiritual Formation. Then This Is It, right? Um,
Hmm.
and then some appendices at the end that just give some very, very practical tips in a very, very real way. So let's do this, Pastor John. Maybe let's just kind of jump through and walk through each of the chapters really fast, because I know you're also
Yeah.
you're a linear thinker sometimes as well, uh,
Yep.
and it may be it may be easy to kind of do it that way. I think before we do that too, I think it may be helpful for us to acknowledge that by and large, there is no black and white manual on parenting.
Oh, for
And
sure.
one of the things that I appreciated through the book is the lack of condemnation,
Hmm.
but the acknowledgement that there
Of
needs
different
to be,
approaches.
yeah, that there
Yeah.
needs to be also humility in your parenting.
Hmm.
That there needs to be humility in your parenting. So, yeah, I just wanted to mention that on the front end before we jump into each of the chapters.
Yeah, and also you read the book through that lens, especially from our cultural perspective, because there are going to be different approaches that even Black culture has that Andy and his wife don't have, and so I always when I'm reading books like this, I'm always like, okay, I see the recipe, but what kind of Lowry's do I need? Or what kind of extra seasoning do I need from my culture to be able to make sure that particularly sticks for my children in my particular context. We always have to do that, but just want to make sure I acknowledge that also on the front end.
Can I ask you a question before we get to chapter 1 really fast?
Yeah, for sure.
This is going to be a little spicy.
Uh-oh.
What's your thoughts on the gentle parenting movement?
The gentle parenting movement.
Yes, sir.
So I am. It's interesting because I'm a tweener.
Yep.
I'm a tweener on a lot of things that I do, right? So, in terms of the way I grew up, and you probably, you can talk about your context as well. Like we grew up getting switches off of trees and understanding that when mama got home or daddy got home, it was all over but the shop, right? And so, but for me and my wife, we approach things a little bit differently. I think I can count on one hand the number of times I've actually spanked my children.
Hmm.
And so we do have a hybrid type approach where sometimes daddy's voice or mommy's voice is just as bad in terms of them understanding just how sincere or serious the consequences of their actions are. And so I have a hybrid-ish approach to that. But in terms of the gentle parenting, I think sometimes it can get so passive. So you're like, who's the parent in the situation? and that right there doesn't make me comfortable because that's when kids get to run rampant over their parent. I see them in public, bro, and I'm like, what is happening right now? This can't be good. So for me, it's about respect, and it's about being able to command that respect through the way you parent.
Yeah.
What about you?
Yeah, I think our parenting has to evolve, and I think it has to be tailored and customized to the uniqueness of each child. I think I agree with you in the sense that sometimes I've seen some people that have allowed the gentle parenting to go to the extreme, and there's no consequences, there's no infrastructure, there's no accountability. And I think what we see from the spirit of Scripture is that children need structure and accountability and discipline and consequences for behavior. Even when you approach this from a lifestyle perspective, everything that we're supposed to learn in life and about life and interacting with people in the world around us, technically we're supposed to get that from home. And so when that doesn't happen, that's going to be a problem. That's going to be a challenge. At the same time, I have seen parents. There is a way to treat your children fairly, but not the same. And I think it's really important for us to acknowledge that, some of your children need you to be more stern than maybe some of your other children.
Correct.
To your point, right? Dad's voice or mom's voice. There's some of your children may have a personality. You can just look at them, and that look may break them down, and they like
all over
for the rest of the day. There's other ones you might have to hold them upside down to get them to respond to the instruction and direction that you're trying to offer. And obviously, we'll deal with this in a moment, right? The 4 stages of parenting, but I think that plays into it as well. Because if you are in, there's no way that I can respond to my adult child, my adult daughter, she's not a child, but my adult daughter, the same way that we respond to the 6-year-old now. It's impossible.
Correct.
Right? That's going to be a yoke around her neck, and that's going to damage the relationship. You've got to be able to evolve and adjust and, be discerning about all of that. So,
no, I agree. No, that's good, man. That's good. So let's jump into chapter 1 about North Star, man. We've already talked about the goal of the book, which is where he started with that's their North Star. Is like, hey, we want to parent in a way where our kids want to eventually come back home just because they want to, not because they have to.
Yep. Yep.
And so that's the way they want to approach it. Anything in chapter one that stood out for you in terms of quotes and like things that were sticking points for you
No, I
in that
think that's
North
good.
Star chapter?
I think your summary is spot on, and
Hmm.
I loved again how um, just very simple and very practical. I mean, there were some very simple things that he talked about, like we shouldn't talk to our
Hmm.
kids the way we talk to everybody else. That stood out.
Hmm.
We shouldn't
Hmm.
talk to our kids the way we don't talk to everybody else. We shouldn't talk to our
Yeah.
kids the same way. And
Yeah.
this one was really powerful, which even made me reflective a little bit. We shouldn't argue with our kids.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. I thought
and
that was good. I thought that was good.
yeah, because
Yeah.
it's so easy for you as a parent to get into a situation, especially as your children get older,
Mm.
older high school years and all that stuff, where you feel like, man, is there like a little tug of war here, and you got to lay the law down or be, whatever. Like, man,
Hmm.
that's a point where we got to take a step back and evaluate. Okay, no, I don't need to
Mm.
argue with my kids on this. I need to take a step back, and
Mm.
here's what the rules are. Some things are conversations, and some things are not. Some things this is going to be the way that it is, and we kind of keep it moving.
Yeah. And then one other one that I found that was on page 9 that I appreciated. He said, "Dads, when we become emotionally unavailable, parenting is reduced to behavior modification."
Yep.
And so he talks about, as a dad being available to your children. And his wife talks about later in the book how one word from her dad just made her break down crying. And this is like as an adult. And it's something culturally that, from my perspective, I understand how important that is because I didn't get it myself. So try to make sure I'm available for my kids for that so that I'm not the dad who's just there for behavior modification, right?
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
It's interesting, and I'll just kind of share this transparently. Um, as my daughter was getting older, the oldest one, as my daughter was getting older, um, I made the assumption based on some what I felt like were
Mm.
some relationship cues,
Mm.
where I knew that our relationship was adjusting, but I took that to mean that I needed to pivot in certain ways. For example, um, walking in and giving her a big hug, uh,
Mm.
as opposed to a quick hug and then kind of letting her move on, or even
Wow.
like, so when I check in with her, it became, everything okay, you good, you need anything,
Mm.
that kind of thing. And so we basically had to have an intervention between the two of us. Not that
Mm.
something was tragically wrong, but her saying, like, I know I'm older, but this is what I actually need from you,
Wow.
right?
Wow.
This is what I would like from you. And so I had to apologize to her
Mm.
because I said, I missed this.
Mm.
I realized that this was something you still wanted. And in some ways it was like, you know, don't treat me like a child, but there's some elements that I still need my daddy, and
Yeah.
I'm the
Right.
little girl, right?
Yeah. So your assumption is you transition out of that phase, and I'm like, okay, now I'm in another phase where, but hearing it from her, it was helpful for you.
Yes, and I would say that it was probably wiser. Like, I'm not happy that I missed it, but I'm
Mm.
thankful that we recognized that this was a gap, and she was comfortable enough to bring that to
To
me.
communicate that with you. And that's the important part. Like for her to be able to say that to you rather than holding on to that and saying, I mean, I sure wish dad would do this. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
yeah,
So that'd be great. That's great, man. That's
yeah.
great.
So just a
Uh
transparent example.
yeah. Man, I'm gonna tell you the truth. Chapter 2 is my favorite chapter.
Is it?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I enjoyed several other chapters, but I like frameworks, right? We're both systems guys, right? So I like, and the fact that his right wife wrote it, I'm like, man, she wrote a good chapter.
Well,
Um,
actually, she wrote both chapter 2 and chapter 3. I think the two of them, I think they broke it down
together.
for the sake
Yeah.
of attention span, but it's really one
Yeah.
chapter.
Yeah, it is. It is. I was looking at both of them. I was like, that's like actually one chapter. Because early years, latter years, I get it, but it's all should be one chapter. But I like the framework. And I like the language around the framework. It's something I put into. So I usually just take one big takeaway or framework from a book and just put it into like a note so I can make sure I use it in the future. Because you
Yeah.
can't take every note that you have from a book and keep it,
No.
right?
No.
So this is like one of the two that I kept, just kind of the discipline years, the training years, the coaching years, and the friendship years. And those broke down to ages 0 to 5 discipline, right?
Yep.
The training years are 5 to 12,
Yep.
coaching years are 12 to 18, and then the friendship years are 18 plus.
Yes.
And within that framework, talk about the different approaches that you have to parenting in the midst of all of that. And as I'm thinking back on my parenting journey, because I'm still in the middle of it, right? So now I have one kid in the coaching years, right? And that's exactly what we've been doing. I just haven't had language for it, right?
Mm.
It's just something that we've organically done because my son is starting to take on more responsibility for homework and other items, and we're just coaching him along the way.
Mm.
Whereas my daughter now is moving into her or in the middle of her training years, right? So I got to be mindful of going back to discipline years to where I'm trying to go through that discipline phase when I really need to be in training coaching mode for both of them,
Mm.
especially my son. The thing that makes me fearful the most is like he won't be prepared for college.
Mm.
And so my coaching emphasis, when you're working out with a trainer, like
Yep.
they emphasize certain things. So I
Yep.
have to emphasize certain things I feel like are weaknesses in his game
Yep.
in
Yep.
these years. And so that's what I'm doing right now. But having this framework, understanding that framework, being able to communicate that with my wife has been good. Even though we've been doing it organically, right? We've been like, oh yeah, these are the training years. But having that framework has been helpful.
No, the framework is powerful. It is.
Yeah.
It is powerful, right? And they even acknowledge, like in the book, like this is something that I wish that we had, right? And they
Mhm.
offer that. I one of the things that I think bless you, man. Yeah, that's a
Oh,
powerful.
Dawn,
Go on,
she's a
I'm sorry.
member. Yeah, she's at my church, but she's mothering people. She just don't. She knows you don't have to be a biological parent, and Dawn is a mother, auntie, and all that. So I think this book is helpful for even folks who are not parents. So I appreciate you for coming through, Dawn.
Yeah.
Appreciate you.
So one of the things that the book doesn't say verbatim in this way, but when I finished chapter 2 and 3 and looked at the framework,
Mm,
one of the things that happens is like there's no day you wake up and you say because I agree with the framework, but sometimes
mm,
the years shift a little bit, right? So it
mm.
says that so the coaching is from or the training is from 5 to 12, the coaching is from 12 to 18. Quite candidly, you may have a child that you may have to move into the coaching space at 10, right?
Mhm.
Or you
Yeah,
may have to stay in the training phase until 14 or 15. Just kind
for
of
sure.
be discerned. So my
Maybe
point,
some overlap in the middle.
oh, for
Yep.
sure.
Yeah.
The point I'm
Yeah.
making is there is no sign that comes on the TV, or you don't
Right.
get a text that says, "Hey, alert, your child is
Time to
shifting,"
coach.
right? Your child is
Right.
shifting seasons. You got to kind of start discerning. And one of the
Mhm.
things that in my estimation makes it so clear when your child is switching and you need to switch from training or coaching to friendship, et cetera, is friction.
Mm. Yep.
Friction, right?
Mhm.
When the friction starts happening. And the thing that I thought about was, and somebody gave me this piece of advice early on, and I've had to implement it because,
Mm.
especially when your kids get to be teenagers, there can be a
Yeah.
disconnect where you get one word answers, you get silence, or,
Yeah.
like I saw this meme that said, um, uh, texting your teenagers is like being in a dysfunctional relationship, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it. I'm like, I just gave you a whole paragraph. Why am I just getting okay?
Or just a reaction. You might just get a reaction
Yeah.
button, like where they'll just, or a quick emoji, like a thumbs up. You're like, wait a minute, I just said something emotional to you and you gave me a thumb,
Right.
whatever. So anyway, so uh But the statement was, and this is what I was thinking about it when I finished chapter 2 and 3. Keep showing up.
Yeah. Yep.
You got to
Yep.
keep showing up. If your child shifted to the coaching stage and you're still in the training stage and there's friction, you can't let the friction cause you to walk away. You got to keep showing up as the parent.
Got to.
Now,
good,
if
man.
you miss the boat and you miss some relational cues, you have to acknowledge that and adjust.
Yep.
But if there's no cues that's been missed, guess what?
Yep.
You got to keep showing up.
You got to keep showing up.
Yeah.
Yep.
Keep showing
I
up.
like that, man. I like that.
So yeah, the framework.
So here's the other thing that was interesting to me that I've seen like play out in families. They mentioned on page 26, kids move from one stage to the next without thought or effort. But parents don't. Parents don't. And I've seen it in families that I know, families I've counseled, like folks are keeping their kids in discipline phase when they need to be way in coaching mode for sure.
Yeah.
And so they try to take kids back to a certain phase where they say, "Oh, you're just being disrespectful now."
Yeah.
When the kid's a whole adult.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there's no conversation around like, okay, they're supposed to be in friendship phase, but now we take them back. Sometimes parents don't want to move on.
Yeah.
And it's hard. But kids move through those phases easily.
Yep.
It's like natural for them.
Yep. Yep. That's for sure. You're exactly right. You're exactly right. You're exactly right. This is good, man. You ready to jump into chapter 4?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So go ahead.
Go ahead. No, you got it.
So I was going to say, I love this chapter because it also was simple in the sense that it talked about, so the title of the chapter is Don't Worship the Devil. They could have very easily have labeled this chapter so many other things like non-negotiables or rules of the house, or something like that. And basically, what they're saying in the book is that their home did not have a whole list of rules. It had 2 rules that serves as the foundation for their family. One was, honor your mother, and it's the spirit of honor, right? And the second one was, don't tell a lie.
Don't lie.
Don't lie. Those are non-negotiables. And she, Sandra talks about that she thought about, for a short period of time, adding that third rule of don't worship the devil, right? But
right.
But she said, hey, I decided I was going to stick to the 2 rules. So, anyways. I think it's just powerful, right? So for me, I was thinking about, okay, what are the non-negotiables in our house? Lying, of course, is a big one, but it was a very reflective, as a parent, very reflective chapter to say, okay, and now we're having to create a different kind of culture for the youngest to make sure that we're not missing certain things that we included with the other ones because there was 3, and we sort of, we were parenting in mass versus now having to sort of parent as a single, like with one single child in that different age category by itself.
Yeah. I think I found it interesting that he mentioned that his wife wasn't necessarily on board with the honoring piece because she's like, what about you? Like, why they're disrespecting you?
Yeah.
And in essence, the core essence of it was like, Andy was like, listen, if they honor you, they in turn honor me.
Yep.
Because they're honoring you. And it flows, there's an overflow of honor that happens when you honor mom. Yep. So they were like as stringent as nobody sits down to eat until mommy get to the table. And so even in that, they saw that their kids later on tried to replicate that in their own relationship. So I thought that was really interesting and really cool.
Let me say these rules, these truths, I should say, because you mentioned this earlier with the young lady Dawn, but I think to your point, if you're an auntie or an uncle, surrogate parent to children, to families, because I think this book is not just a book about steps; it also is a book about mindset. So the mindset, the paradigm, is applicable for those that, to your point earlier, have not birthed kids.
Completely applicable. Yep.
Yeah. I think that's good. Anything else on this chapter? Because I know our time is getting away
No,
from you. We still got 5 more
no,
chapters to go.
I think that was good, man. I think that
You
was
want to
good.
deal with chapter 5, the designer consequences?
Yeah, design of consequences. So for chapter 5, I think one of the things that really resonated with me was the apology, again, framework.
Yep.
I think you see a theme with me. So oftentimes you see parents have kids apologize, like whether in public with folks or to adults when they do something, and it's just kind of this sorry and a
Yep.
walk off, right?
Yep.
But I think the three kind of pieces that Andy mentions is helpful in terms of apologies and how they can help shape your children, right? On page 83. He
Yep.
says, require your children to apologize in complete sentences. So now you got to know what they're apologizing for rather than
Yep.
just a blanket apology, right?
Yep.
Apologize to everyone affected by their actions. So
Yeah.
they have to make sure they seek out everybody who's been affected by them
Yep.
and then make it face to face and with eye contact. This is also that personable, like helping them become citizens in our community. You have to be able to talk to people face to face and make eye contact in a social media, phone driven world with these kids. One of the things I do with my son all the time is, man, when people talk to you, you give them a firm handshake, you speak up, and you say what you need to say, and you give them eye contact. And
Yep.
so the same is true of apologies, man. I think that's a good framework that they have here on page 83 for that.
Man, you jumped over 2 of the points that stood out to me
Okay.
for the book that I want to kind of just, if I can, really fast go back to,
Sure.
and that is, and I'm gonna deal with the second one first because I think that's an overarching thing, right? That is, he says it's in the book, and this is a sticky point. The goal of discipline is to teach your child how to restore the
Yeah.
relationship they damaged, right?
Yep.
So you think about, like, where else do people learn that conflict does not have to devolve into drama? You
Yeah.
don't, people are not taught that often, right? That's why people go to the extremes. Like when there's a conflict in a relationship, all of a sudden now we got to blow the whole thing up. We got to blow the whole relationship up. And I think that's where this, even this I was going to say doctrine, but it's not doctrine. For some people it is doctrine. But that's why this whole mindset and this thought around, like, this whole cutting people off idea,
Right.
like
Yeah.
if you got to keep cutting people off, you need to
Mm.
make some changes,
Yeah. Yep.
and
Yep.
and so every relationship doesn't have to end sour. You don't have to leave a job and blow everybody up in the process, and damage
Exactly.
people's reputation and disparage people and all those things. So there's a way to repair relationships and have healed relationships, because I just don't think we're wired. I don't
Mm.
think we're wired to manage multiple unhealed relationships. So
Yeah.
when you then teach that to your kids, that relationships matter, reputation matters, integrity matters. To your point, when you talked about your son, look people in the eye. If you get it wrong, apologize. If y'all disagree, figure out a way to work it out, et cetera, right?
Mm.
And all of that. So that's the larger idea here. But then the other point that they made right at the top of this chapter is, and I love this: punishment is not discipline. Punishment is punishment, right? Discipline is an entirely different process from the punishment. And
Yep.
you can think as a parent, well, I gave them a punishment, so that's the discipline. And it's not. Those
No,
are
it's
2
not.
different
Yeah.
things. So I just wanted to kind of
Yeah.
mention that really fast.
I like that. I like that. I like that. And
Yeah.
then frameworks, sermon illustrations, and quotes. Those are my 3 big things, right? So one illustration that I put in the pocket for later was the one on loving him on your calendar.
Yep.
Conversation he had with one of his, I don't know if it was a colleague or whoever it was, about juggling work and home. And the
Yep.
man mentioned over and over again how much he loved his kids. And he interrupted him and he said, "Hey, I know you love your family in your heart, but they can't see your heart. You have
Yep.
to love them on your calendar."
Yep.
I was like, "Woo, that's
Yep.
so good." How are you
Boom.
scheduling that time to be able to do that? And
Yep.
so I thought that was really good.
Yep. That's actually in chapter 6, isn't it? The loving them on your calendar.
Is it chapter 6? Let me see. Oh, it is. I just jumped the gun on chapter 6. My
No,
bad.
you good.
Well,
You
that
good.
was Chapter 6, schedule survival.
Love them on your calendar.
Love them on your calendar.
Yeah.
I had my personal notes were broken up the wrong way, so my bad.
No, you good. You good.
So yeah, I thought that was a really, really good illustration for parents, busy lifestyles. It's like, oh, some parents feel like they love their kids by providing for them, but does your calendar show it?
Yeah.
The kid, he says, time is the currency of love.
Yeah.
I thought that was really, really good.
So I think we need to acknowledge this, and that is, and I didn't realize this actually until a few weeks ago. I was having a conversation with someone, Pastor John. I didn't realize how many people struggle with calendaring. Calendaring, like actually,
really,
there's a lot of people who struggle with calendaring, like keeping up with appointment, double booking themselves, being in two places at the same time, or overcommitting themselves, or not writing things down and knowing where to be, details. I mean, there's some people who really genuinely struggle, and I wasn't aware like that was like, I know that there's some people, we've joked about, in leadership and stuff, people that procrastinate, or you joke about people, where somebody apologizes and say, oh yeah, I double booked myself. But there's some people that it's a chronic issue for them, to the point of frustration that they're trying to navigate. They're trying to figure out, man, this is a struggle for me, and I don't know, I don't have a path forward on this, and I need help on this. I want to say to parents, and folks that are listening to this, if that's a struggle for you, your life is never not going to be busy. And as a matter of fact, if you're a parent, it gets busier. And so ask for the help that you need, but you're not going to get that help if you don't acknowledge that from a calendar perspective, like this is the system that helps to run your life. And I'm not saying that if you are a creative person or free-spirited, so to speak, or you like to fly, kind of loosely, that you can't do that. But it's impossible to live life and not have some part of your life in some way structured. And so you got to have a system for doing that. And when I say a system, I mean literally like a physical calendar for some people, or an electronic or digital calendar for some people, or whatever it may be. But acknowledge that it's a for you, and that's part of the first step of getting the help that you need. So I want to name that in this chapter, and acknowledge that, because that's for some people that's a big deal. It's a real issue.
And I know great leaders who just aren't good at it, and that's fine. And that's one of the things that Michael Hyatt talks about this as being a drudgery zone, right?
Yeah.
When you find stuff that's in your drudgery zone, get somebody else to do it, or find something that automates the process, right? Because it's important, because time is something you can't get back, right? And so your calendar needs to be something that you focus on, so that you can focus on the other things that you do like. And so I want to
detour for just a second. The timing of this couldn't have been better.
Okay, go ahead.
So my daughter, as I said, she's getting settled into the workplace, and she's doing a great job, right? But we were talking today, me and my wife and her, that she's so busy that she's been forgetting to eat lunch, and then just kind of getting into a rhythm. I just sent her a text earlier saying, "Hey, Daddy, love you, but don't forget to eat lunch today." So she just responded. This is the text right here. I'm trying to cover.
The three hearts. The three hearts.
Yeah. So, but it says, can you see that?
Hey, Dad, love you. Thank you so much. Yeah. Wow. Yep.
Right.
Yep.
So
just the simple things, man. Yeah. She asked for it, and you give it to her.
Just simple.
That's it, man. That's it, man.
Just simple.
Yeah.
Just simple.
Yep.
The timing of that couldn't have been better. All right.
That's great, man.
I got
anything else in chapter 6 with the schedule?
No, I think that's good. I think that's good.
Okay.
I think that's good.
Chapter 7, what you got? I want to hear from you on chapter 7 for words. I heard you say words. You was like some good stuff in that words chapter. So what you got?
Woo! This is, so first of all, I don't think that this is a chapter that anybody can walk away with and not be like, okay, let me take a step back and evaluate what have I
Yep.
said to my children, Jesus?
Mhm. Right. Right. Yep.
So,
Yep.
so what you say
Mm.
and how you say it matters,
That's it, man.
right?
Yep.
And I love what they say in the book. You like framework. So here's part of the framework. They
Mhm.
say the intent is irrelevant.
It's irrelevant. Yep.
You may have
Yep.
not intended to offend anybody or
It's the
offend,
impact.
right? Huh? What'd you say? I'm sorry.
It's the impact, right?
The impact,
Mhm.
brother. It's the impact. It is the
Mm.
impact.
Mm.
And so you've gotta take a step back. And they say this in an earlier chapter when they were talking about the discipline thing. But,
Mm.
but one of the things that I walked away with, and they didn't put this in these words, but you got to create a buffer, I think, between your emotions and
Mm.
your responses.
Wow. That's
Like
good.
you got to acknowledge your emotions as a parent. Like it's okay to get frustrated about something. It's okay to be disappointed
Mm.
about something. It's okay to be like aggravated about something, but your words have so much weight to them as a parent. Like, and here's the thing I thought about from this chapter, man. There are some people whose entire lives are built around a word or words that a parent spoke before they were
Yep.
5 or 6 years old, and
Yeah.
they're 50 or 60 now, and their whole life is still
Still stuck there, man.
to that
Yeah.
one word or that one phrase.
Yep. You're right. You're right.
That's insane on the
Mhm.
amount of power that is.
Yeah. Yep.
Insane.
Mhm.
Insane.
Yeah. No, that's good, man. I think that's something that a lot of folks won't admit that they wrestle with,
Mm,
in making sure that their words and their intentions, like parents say that all the time, like, "Oh, I didn't really mean it like that."
yep.
Don't matter.
Yep.
Don't matter. It's how it impacted the child. And I know this to be true of adult parent relationships with children. Like they still carrying that stuff, man.
Yep.
Even my own family, like I see people carrying stuff, and I'm like, man, y'all carrying stuff that if the person had just said, I, s- I apologize, and I'm
Yep.
sorry for doing this to you, as
Yep.
opposed to, now I ain't mean it like that.
Yep.
Now I wasn't trying to. I was just messing with you.
Yep. Or they say this in the book. Oh, I was trying to be funny, or I didn't intend
Yeah,
to hurt your feelings, right?
right. Yeah.
Here, really transparent, really transparent. Here's what I figured out early on with the 3 older kids. This is what I figured out for me personally, at least in my household. Because
Mm,
my kids, especially when, what's the word I want to use? Especially like if we're around the house and hanging out, let's just say we're at movie time, or let's just say
mm,
there's a game on, we're all hanging out for the game. Not even that everybody likes the sport, but we're just spending
right.
time together, right? My kids will laugh at anything and make fun of anybody,
Mm,
including me and my wife. Okay.
right.
So early on, they would start cracking jokes on me or my wife,
Mm,
and I just have a quick comeback, right?
mhm.
And one day I made a statement, and I looked in my son's eyes and saw that the statement wasn't a joke to him.
It burned. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I spent some time reflecting on that. And what I walked away with from that moment was my kids can joke, but
Mm,
my words have so much weight that no
mhm.
matter how I intend for the joke to come out, it's never going to be perceived as a joke because this is the king talking.
That's right, man. Words are not equally weighted.
This is the
That's what they
king
say.
talking, right?
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
king is speaking, and the king and or the queen helps to set the entire foundation for the environment that we live in.
Mhm. That's
So
good.
I so the king, because think about it, in a kingdom, when the king speaks, and I'm not saying this from like a big ego thing, I'm
Yeah,
saying
yeah,
like
yeah.
authority. When the king speaks in the kingdom, that's what goes.
Mhm. Yep.
And if my wife came in the house and said to the kids, "This is what I want done," guess what? This is what we want done. If I
Mhm.
walked in and said, this is what we want done, this is what we want done. So that level of weight cannot be played around with,
Yeah,
right?
you can't transfer it over here and think it's gonna be less weighty.
Yeah.
You
Well,
can't take a gold piece and then make it a feather when you make a joke.
yep.
No, it's still a gold piece.
Yep.
You can't do that.
Which is why, like, here's a great example of this for me. They were telling. I was reading this article talking about, so every year the president speaks at the White House Correspondents' Dinner, and
Mhm.
everybody knows that at the White House Correspondents' Dinner that the president generally is going to be cracking jokes, right?
Yeah, right.
But they were saying that they spend so much time crafting the president's jokes and speech basically for that, because this is the president.
Mhm.
And even if he's joking, in some cases, maybe she in the future, right? We'll see.
Mhm.
But the words have so much weight that even if the joke comes across the wrong way, and there have been times I've watched Clinton, I watched Bush, I
Mhm.
watched Obama, I've watched even Trump when they were at the White House port. Well, actually, Trump didn't do the White
He
House
didn't
port.
go.
Yep,
No,
he didn't do it.
he
He didn't
refused
do
to
it.
go. Yeah.
Yep, he refused to go. But I've watched them in this where some jokes the people don't immediately laugh. They say, "Ooh,
Mhm. The weight.
the weight."
Yeah.
Right? The
Yeah.
weight. And so the night that Osama bin Laden got killed was the night of one of the White House Correspondents' Dinner with Obama.
Mhm.
They went back and evaluated all of his jokes to see if he had let up any clues or anything on what was going to take place
That
that
was
night.
gonna take place. Yeah. Yeah.
And he didn't let up on anything. But the point is, parents, man, our words have so
So much
so
weight.
much weight to them.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
No,
much
that's
weight to
good,
them.
man.
Yeah, it was a
Yeah.
sobering chapter. It was a sobering chapter.
Mm. That's good. That's
Yeah.
good.
Yep.
All right. We got 4 more chapters.
Yeah, we ain't gonna get through all of them because we got to end in like 4 minutes.
All right. So let's go with get you one good quote from the next 4 chapters that is probably your favorite from the next 4.
Hmm. It's like asking a preacher for their favorite scripture. um,
Uh, I'll go ahead and tell you mine on the relational faith piece with your children. So again, another framework, right? So you talk about how to develop a relational faith in one of the latter chapters, page 164. And they have 5 things they do with their kids:
yeah,
emphasize personal relationship with God, pay attention to their heart. So constant questions about their hearts, right?
yeah,
Pray together in every season, whatever that may be. I just got
yeah.
celebration balloons. I don't know why. Be open about your own faith journey and
Yeah,
transparent. Hey, dad wasn't always a preacher.
yeah,
These are conversations we have to have with our kids
yeah,
because, growing up as a PK, quote unquote, these kids are going to see a different version of dad than they did before. And then finally, keep your children engaged with your church. Again, PK syndrome. It's like, man, I'm in church day and night. So I try to make sure my kids are engaged in activities that they aren't required to do because they're PKs, but that they want to do
yeah.
because they want to be more connected with Christ.
Um, here's a phrase that's in the book that they dealt with a little bit, but the phrase itself just sat with me.
Mm-hmm.
And the phrase was emotional climate.
Mm. Hmm.
When they talked
Okay.
about the marriage and the kind of marriage
Mm.
that you have,
That's right.
that you're
Yeah.
modeling with your children, that you have a healthy marriage and that kind of thing. They talked about emotional climate,
Mm. I
and
like
I
that.
think, yeah, and I think that phrase just sat with me because it forces you to think about what's the emotional climate
Mm.
um, that you have set in your home.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's one thing to model, a healthy marriage. It's another thing to think about the emotional climate. that you have in your home. So that would be a phrase, or that would be something that stood out to me.
Oh, that's good, man. That's good.
Yeah.
Overall, good book, quick read, man. Some really good pieces and nuggets to kind of see. As parents, you always add certain pieces and supplement what you already are doing. So I think it's some good added fuel for some of the stuff that we're already doing. And even if you're not a parent, Don, some things you can do even in relationships with those you may be mentoring or auntie. So
Auntie Ian, I love that.
yeah.
September 27th, Pastor John.
September 27th is our next date, man. We're gonna be rolling on over into what's our next book?
Our next book is, I just had it up. Our next book is If Jesus Gave a TED Talk.
Jesus, it's TED Talk time. I love that book. So I'm looking forward to that, man. Communication. Both of us love communication. We communicate for a living.
Yep.
So looking forward to having that conversation on September 27th.
Friday, September 27th. If Jesus Gave a TED Talk, really, really excited about it. And so, it's going to be really, really good. Looking forward to that. And I'm going to reach out to Pastor Charles Stone. As I mentioned, he lives in Canada. He's a pastor in Canada there. And so we look forward to what God's going to do with that.
Perfect, man. It's been good going through these with you, man. Appreciate you, brother.
Those of you that are listening to this and watching this on different platforms, we put the link for the book in the chat, so you can go check that out later on. But in the meantime, those of you that are parenting, those of you that are surrogate parents, those of you that are helping parent, go check the book out, and then leave some comments. Let us know what you think. If you're not already subscribed and following both of us on YouTube and on social media, please go do that. Both of our social media handles are there, so we'd love for you all to go and check that out as well. All right, Pastor John, anything else, brother?
No, sir, man. Appreciate you, man. Appreciate the parent you are and the kids you're raising. They're going to be world changers, man. And just grateful for you and your ministry, brother.
Likewise. All right, everybody, have a good rest of your Friday. This is actually a holiday weekend, so if you're holidaying it, that's a word I just made up, be safe, stay safe, and we'll look forward to seeing you all next month. Peace.
I bet.